Good morning, my name is McElf and I work for PSMFC PNAMP. Thanks for joining us for the October 2025 PNAMP Fish Monitoring Work Group meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a couple of meeting logistics. Unless you're speaking, please turn off your camera or microphone by clicking the icons on your screen. It kind of helps us with bandwidth and probably some other folks too. If you have questions or feedback, please use the chat function or raise your hand and unmute yourself. We can mute you, but we can't unmute you. We're going to record the meeting and it will be available hopefully next week on our YouTube channel. If you're having trouble, holy cow, things went haywire. Alrighty, good, there we go. If you guys are having trouble with the chat function, there's a couple of troubleshooting tips. Try leaving and joining again. Use a different browser. Edge usually works better for Teams than Chrome does. Try using the desktop version instead of your browser or vice versa. If you don't have access to the chat, which sometimes happen with folks' organizations, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. PNAMP commits to fostering an open and welcoming environment free from harassment and discrimination. Next, I'd like to acknowledge the Fish Monitoring Work Group team. The names are associated with the tasks that they lead or have previously led. And we are grateful for everybody's interaction and leadership. The core team, which if you guys are out there and want to show your beautiful faces on camera, consists of Casey Bleasner with ODF&W, Marika Dobos of IDF&G, Lara Erikson of PSMFC, Nancy Leonard of PSMFC, Russell Scranton of BPA, Mari Williams of PSMFC, and Jen Bayer, who is retired from USGS and is a consultant now. To help me keep track of participation, feel free to open the chat and introduce yourself with name and organization. This also helps you guys acquaint yourself with the chat function if you're not used to using it. And while you guys are doing that, I'll just quickly cover today's agenda. We're going to kick off with updates on current tasks, and then Lara Erikson and Tom Bird will present the Research Data Alliance and the Salmon Data Mobilization, followed by Q&A. And then we're going to close the meeting with a quick wrap up and some next steps on kind of where we're headed. So now for task updates. These are overviews of progress since we met you guys last April. So this is kind of what's been happening since then. After the task update, I'll briefly pause for questions and comments. If you have a question after we move past the task, just type it in the chat and I'll circle back. Or we can also, I'll check in after we're done and see if you guys want to ask more questions. Let's see here. On an additional note, if you guys are interested in learning more about a particular task, visit our project page on the PNAMP website and kind of give a little overview of it here. And then just select the task that you're interested in. It has a whole, if it is a completed task, it'll have a summary, links to products or related documents. Some of the related documents are down here. So let me know. And feel free to reach out to me if you need more information and you're looking for something specific. I would like to also highlight that the Pit Tag Data and Analysis webinar series concluded in May. It was a resounding success with over 500 participants throughout the series. So kudos to y'all who did presentations. If you missed the series, all the presentations are available on our YouTube channel. And I think Murray and Sam will drop some links for you guys. I know that there's a lot of words on this slide, but it gives you a flavor of kind of what was presented during each session. You can also visit the webinar series page for more specific information and links to stuff. And next up, Mari Williams of PSMFC and StreamNet is now going to talk about the completion of the updated terms and definitions used in CAP data standards task. Go ahead, Mari.
So at this same meeting last year, we launched the task group with the Fish Monitoring Work Group for the terms and definitions review of data in the Coordinated Assessments Data Exchange. This was a ask from the coordinated assessments workshop in 2023 to just clarify that we were all consistently using the same terms for the same things. We evaluated them, the task group wrapped things up in January and handed it off to ourselves in the DDT for natural and hatchery DES development. We met twice. We had 2 surveys that went out, and we came to consensus across all of the terms and definitions with one-to-one consistency. A lot of the hatchery, the terms used in the hatchery DESs were incorporated into the 2025-0728 version of the hatchery coordinated assessments DES, and the natural coordinated assessments DES will be updated in the coming year-ish as time allows, and that will also incorporate in the new terms and definitions. So shout out to everybody that really helped a lot on that. We had some great conversations on what does abundance mean and how do we use it in a data set. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Mari. Does anybody have any questions for Mari? And like I said, we'll circle back in case you guys are contemplating or typing things. Alrighty, keep this train rolling. I'm going to do a quick update on carrying capacity standards. Currently, this task is working on a paper reviewing carrying capacity estimation methods, including habitat expansion, stock recruitment models, quantile regression, individual-based models, and food web modeling. Authors of the paper can be seen on the slide. We are nearing completion with reviews and journal selections in progress. Our lead author is currently on furlough status, and we will continue our work on this paper when the government functions resume. We are also planning on producing a best practices white paper. Russ, I think you're out there. Do you want me to add any? Do you want to add anything?
Nothing else.
All right, cool. Thanks, Russ. All right, anybody have questions on that task? All right. As I mentioned earlier, the pit tag data and analysis webinar series wrapped up, and we're in the process of determining next steps. We are evaluating comments from surveys sent to the webinar participants and also the entire fish monitoring work group. We're following up with individuals and entities that were recommended for presentations, and we'll add, there will be a plan for either an in-person workshop focusing on analysis or another webinar series, just because everybody's really funding constraint and travel constraint these days. So if we do another webinar series, it might be on emerging pit tag technology modeling or setting up and managing sites. And if you guys have a request, feel free to reach out to me and we can see what we can wrangle for you to help you out with pit tag data. Marika, I think that's good. Do you want to add anything? Russ, do you want to add anything? I saw you come off mute.
I think the one thing that's out there, we did hear it, and we're still trying to figure out how to provide a link to resources and tools. So we had a lot of presentations, a lot of tools. So we're still working on a task to post and provide links to various DART tools or R code tools that people have been producing and developing. So I think that's something we'll has as an outcome in a future work group update.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Russ. I completely spaced putting that on this slide. So yeah, thanks for reminding me.
And if you do, I guess a comment for everybody out there, if you do have analytical tools, R codes and things that you are using and think would be good for other people to have access to analyze pit tag data for regional analysis of your guys's various fish products, send them our way so we can share them. I think that would be one of the next steps. Thanks.
Thanks, Russ. Any questions on this task? All right. The rotary screw trap task was briefly paused as we awaited additional staff resources, but we've begun work on the dashboard again. It'll contain information from multiple regional systems and sources for rotary screw traps in the basin. The next step for the group will be, for this specific group, Fish Monitoring Work Group, will be a QA/QC of the data. Just a side note, other items of discussion are non-CRB data and whether it can be integrated into the dashboard. So maybe some stuff from Puget Sound or the Klamath Basin. And I'll hand this over to Sam Semino. He's the task lead on dashboard development.
Yeah. Hi, thanks, Meg. So yeah, as Meg mentioned, we are reestablishing this fish monitoring work group task, and currently we're reaching out to some of the rotary screw trap contacts and bios to update information. And the feedback we've received so far have shown that the rotary screw trap data and metadata changes pretty quickly. And so, you know, traps are moving, traps are being retired, contacts are changing. So we've decided we need a better way to keep all this information up to date, because currently we're just kind of using a Google Doc that people are sending to me, and then I am making changes. So if you can click. So if you guys are familiar with the Salmon data discovery tool, which is fairly new, we are transitioning potentially over to something that looks more like this, which is much more user-friendly. Essentially, the rotary screw trap bios or contacts can log in to what we'd call a rotary screw trap tool, and they can update their information. And so this will make it much easier to maintain and keep it up to date. And yeah, we are just kind of mocking up what this would look like right now. So it'll be a few months before this is really active. And of course, this is still pending some funding. So yeah. All right, I think that's it for this slide. Next. All right, so this is a task that really Nancy is still the kind of lead on this, but I am presenting today because she is at another conference. And this is these are maps basically that are we're looking to create focal species polygon maps. And these maps are these interoperable maps that can be used between CB fish and monitoring resources, ideally that build upon the StreamNet fish distribution layers that some of you are already pretty familiar with. And these layers we aim to display are species distribution layers, stream habitat use, and layers for stock grouping. So this is all draft right now, and we're just kind of in the early development stages. Next slide. And so then we have the process for this is first we're gonna locate the existing layers and information. So we'll be working with StreamNet partners, that's key here, and the PSMFC GIS team. And then the draft polygon layers, and we'll start drafting these polygon layers to get to like a fully documented source. And then we'll share the draft polygons and information sources with our StreamNet partners for review. So it's all going to go through StreamNet partners. It's going to remain draft for a while. And then we're going to work with the PNAMP fish monitoring work group on this new polygon task to get that expert review of the draft polygon layers. And then last, we would package these layers and make them available, as I mentioned, for CB fish and monitoring resources. So we want them to be kind of standardized, look the same throughout these two systems and other local systems or local programs. And so then, you know, the future of all this is StreamNet partners become able to provide additional layers using the PSMFC fish distribution mapper. And the polygons will then be updated with their layers. So, you know, it's going to be a pretty long process, and I'll get to a timeline here, but keep in mind that everything's going to go through these StreamNet partners for review, and it's going to remain draft for some time. Next slide. So the sequence of these distribution focal species layers are, we're going to start off with these Chinook seasonal run distributions, as well as coho, sockeye, and steelhead, because we have a lot of this information already. And then we would move on to something like the blue section, which would be, we need a little more detail here, which we can get from experts, but that'll be kind of after we've already established the process through those white species, the Chinook, coho, sockeye, and steelhead. And as an example, next slide, the way we will be doing this is we have something like the spring Chinook here from the StreamNet mapper. And here we can see the distribution extent and you know, migration, rearing and migration, spawning and rearing, and all that content already in the StreamNet mapper. But we need to add more attributes to this. Next slide. And so then we can create these Huck 12 sub-watershed polygons based on that information, and kind of this is kind of the first step to making these polygons. Next slide. But we still have other attributes we can add to this, such as like salmon and steelhead population layers developed from the catfish HLI. Next slide. And then we also can grab attributes and information from ESU layers and MPG layers on these specific focal species as well. So next slide. So essentially what we have here is we need to add additional existing layers and relevant attributes, as well as information from expert sources to create these polygons. So we kind of have a starting point with the StreamNet mapper and other products that we have, and then we can kind of build upon those layers or information and attributes to create these polygons. Next slide. So then this is kind of our rough timeline. And it's quite rough right now, but right now we're in the stage of where it's just an internal PSMFC staff work, and we're working with QW consulting on all of this. I think Neil is out there. He can add any more information if you'd like. There's probably some stuff I missed. But yeah, these initial draft polygons, the next step kind of here is then we'll have a partner review and provide input like I mentioned before, and then we'll create these fish monitoring work group task teams. And then as we progress, which is going to be like late summer next year, we'll do a little bit more consulting work, internal PSMFC work to provide a second draft and move on from there. So really the main goal here is to get all of the draft polygons done by the end of September in 2027. So it's a pretty long timeline. Any questions, or Neil, if you want to add anything to this, please feel free.
No, Sam, I think you've done a great job. It's pretty thorough for sure.
Cool, thanks.
Hey, Sam,
Hey,
one
Russ,
other piece that we're supporting this for is one, we're looking for consistency between the MAFAC terminology, the recovery pieces, and making sure we have consistent reporting to council and graphics that are being generated. We've had a lot of public requests for information at BPA for non-listed focal species, reintroductions, but we don't have common boundaries to show those areas of what's happening. So we're trying to get these focal species layers to help that. The other side of this as well is with the release of the hatchery coordinated assessments. This layer will provide a foundation base layer that can be quickly used to create new stock names for all the hatchery stocks and the extents that those exist. So I think that's teeing that up helps. This product helps tee that up so coordinated assessments can visualize the extent of those new data sets once they become published. So absent having these focal species layers or GIS layers for those species and those stocks, this effort I think will help establish that and help communicate where those data sets are.
Yeah,
so that's
great. Thanks, Russell.
Yeah, thanks for that additional info, Russ. All right. Anybody else have questions, comments? All right. Next up, Mari is going to talk about another new task, the SAR, SAS data in the CAX. Go ahead, Mari.
Okay, so this is a project, a task that has come out of the April 2025 ISAB report that reviewed data in coordinated assessments and elsewhere for SAR and SAS estimates. So while the coordinated assessments developed a data exchange standard for smolt to adult return rates, it does end up housing smolt to adult survival rates as well. So we will be working on delineating the two different types of data that are existing in coordinated assessments and how we can better identify each of them in the future for research and review purposes. Casey, Becky, and Evan have volunteered to participate and got their names in on this slide as task lead. They might want to object, but here's your second. And we definitely want to expand the group to everyone interested in trying to make sure that we are properly identifying the data that takes so much to collect. So let me know if you want to be on it or email the group.
Excellent. Thanks, Mari. Any questions from anyone?
I did drop the link to the report in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Mari. All right. Okay. I'm going to just go back here real quick. So as I promised, we'll circle back in case you guys came up with questions on any of the tasks while we were kind of going through stuff. Let me know, Mari and Sam, if there's anything in the chat. And if you folks don't want to type in the chat, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions about any of the tasks that we talked about. Otherwise, that'll lead us to, the fun part of this meeting. All righty. I am honored to introduce Lara Erikson, who is a project manager with the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission, and Tom Bird, a research scientist with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And with that, I will hand this over to you, Lara and Tom.
Okay, great. Thanks, Meg. Hopefully, I was trying to adjust my camera, but I guess you still see my banana boxes, but that's our move into the new office. It's been a transition. Just bear with me while I share the screen. And Tom, you're out there virtually too?
Here I am.
Okay, perfect. Shared the wrong one. Let's try that again. Oops. Okay. Let me just. So it almost looks like it's in presentation mode there, doesn't it? There we go.
There you go.
So to start with, I attempted a Menti poll, which apparently was not successful, but when we get to that part later in the presentation, I will try to muscle us through it, probably via Teams, but hopefully bear with me at that point. And so today, Tom and I are going to talk about the Salmon Research and Monitoring Interest Group, and essentially it's an introduction to the RDA, the membership, and then where we're at with our working group development. So we currently have 3 chairs that are listed there, and representing the Pacific and the Atlantic. Graham is a data specialist with the Salmon Trust and Missing Salmon Alliance in UK, so he's actually based in Scotland. And Tom Bird is a research scientist with Fisheries and Ocean Canada. He's based in British Columbia or in Canada. And then myself, I'm a program manager with Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission based in the US and more specifically at our Portland office. So what led to the formation of this group? And so there are a couple of steps along the way. This is really a story of where we started, where we are right now, and what we see as our next steps. So through the work and the efforts of the International Year of the Salmon, which was a project endorsed by the North Pacific Anadromous Fish Commission, I think many of you are familiar with the work that was done through the IYS. There was a call for synthesis papers in 2022. 2 of our chairs, Graham and Tom, along with other colleagues from around the Atlantic and Pacific, were working on salmon, wrote, and Tom Bird actually provided a presentation during the information systems session, and the synthesis paper of this work in collaboration is now available at the link that you see here. This paper outlines the reasons and the requirements for salmon data mobilization and the fact that it's critical to inform our approach to salmon conservation and recovery. And there are 3 main recommendations presented, with each recommendation at targeting or aimed at a different set of stakeholders. So this table is a snapshot or provides an example of salmon data mobilization efforts. And these are data sets from IYS expeditions for the North Pacific. And this table essentially details the number of downloads and citations, clearly illustrating or indicating the benefit or the reward that can come from mobilizing salmon data. And again, this link here is the paper itself, which is on the MPAFC website. So most, if not all of you attending have a pretty good idea of what salmon data are and are well familiar with these data. So these data are comprised of many details, as you see from the graphic on the left. And they can be salmon traits such as length and weight and age, to biological processes such as including the various life stages, as well as the predator-prey relationships. It can be the physical environment that the salmon are in, whether that's in the open ocean or in the freshwater environment. Salmon are abundant, they're broad in scope and multidisciplinary, and we have myriad of methods and tools that we employ to collect these essential data in assessing these populations. So, and they are complicated. The salmon are complicated as well as their data. This graphic is from the 2022 paper on the likely suspects framework, and it clearly illustrates this point, just how complicated they are. It depicts the various factors affecting salmon population at the different stages of their life cycle and the vastly different environments in which they occur. So building a data community. So recommendation number 3 from the IYS synthesis paper was aimed at a community or creation, and that's kind of what led to the creation of the RDA interest group. It was really acting on that recommendation. So we believe that an essential component of successful data mobilization is the existence of peer support network that facilitates regular engagement, transparent communication, and inclusive processes that inspire collaboration and knowledge sharing. So the salmon data mobilization community should be sustained so that it supports community building within the salmon focused community and allows connections to other communities that focus on other data types. So just Research Data Alliance allows a lot of that, as you'll see in subsequent slides. So the salmon data mobilization community can be a resource for skill development and training to keep up with technology, and share existing toolkits and knowledge so that the best practices are developed and persist. So this community could serve as a resource for a variety of specific types of technical experts. This network is also vital to inform advocacy for critical improvements needed, such as strengthening in-house data expertise with dedicated funding for staff and training persistence of data repositories. Funding to allow sharing and evolution of tools, and then for the policy level support for improved documentation of quality metadata. So all of this to feed into the policy level support or management decisions that need to be made for salmon. So why did we decide to connect and formalize our group with RDA, which is the Research Data Alliance? We did consider other communities or groups of practice, or communities of practice rather, and much of it had to do with the global reach and importance of global connection that the RDA provides, as well as the 6 guiding principles, which you see here, that are at the heart of the RDA community. And so the focus on community that our group had identified and also shared a lot of these same principles. In addition to this, some of the members came from organizations who were already affiliated with RDA. USGS was already connected or a member of RDA, and some of the individuals were already members of the RDA community and other interest groups within RDA. The RDA interest group would also allow us to create, promote, and sustain a peer support network for to mobilize data. It would allow us to create social incentives for making data accessible and for contributing to the development of consistent vocabularies and standards. It also promotes best practices with examples that can be replicated. And right away, there's toolkits and methods library that was accessible. So this here is the link for registering with at RDA, and which also I can share in the chat later. And then this is actually our interest group here. So let me see if I can quickly. So this is where the link would take you, where you would register with RDA. And then I can get rid of that bar at the top. There we go. And then this is our actual interest group here. So you'll see right now there's 44 members within the RDA interest group. And so once you register with RDA, you too could come to this interest group and become a member, or you could also join other interest groups. It's fairly seamless, but so and another thing that the RDA community offers and is it provides or gives us access to outputs immediately. So there's an outputs catalog on the RDA website. There's physical samples, like an overview of practical free online resources and tools that you can access right away. There's metadata standards catalog. It's an online resource. It's developed to mobilize the metadata standards, and its focus is on how to improve data sharing, exchange, and interoperability, and how to improve adoption and implementation. So a key strength, as I may have mentioned, is doing this within the RDA is their ability to expand awareness globally and the adoption of these outputs worldwide. So that was really attractive to our group. And so our goals as an interest group is to expand our existing chairs. Uh-oh, did I lose? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, good. My headphone just clicked out. But you saw that I had listed 3 chairs. We actually, when our interest group was formed or adopted, we had 4 chairs. We also had an individual on the western side of the Atlantic in Canada. We have 3 chairs now. We're looking to expand to have 8 chairs. That's what we would like to see. We'd like to have representation across the Pacific as well as the Atlantic. So we'd like to have 2 chairs on the east and west side, or west and east side of both oceans. And we will continue to function as a social network, bringing practitioners and their data and data tools together, linking ideas across the world and spanning time zones, which I'll get into a bit more. But yeah, time zones have kind of been the most challenging part. We're eager to collaborate, but it's a little tricky with the time zones, which I'm hoping Graham may join at some point, but it is the late evening or evening time for him now in Scotland. So it's been a little challenging, or he's been very accommodating to connect with us and work with us on the Pacific side. And so we have considered whether there is enough interest or whether it would function better with a Pacific or Atlantic chapter. But at the same time, we don't want to fracture, we don't want to lose that connection that we have by connecting globally. And so even if we did have the different chapters, we would still have regular connection, at least through the chairs, if not more, to maintain that networking. So through the RDA interest group, we are learning and accessing the RDA community and growing our community as we employ existing collaboration strategies, such as we attend or present at the RDA plenaries. And then also we access or use the central hub that RDA offers, which is that link that I went to earlier. And then RDA allows us to more effectively develop tools and processes, and then we can more effectively share those in return with other groups, interest groups, or like-minded groups. So the link down in this footer on this slide now, this is our interest groups wiki. And that's where you find many of the details about our interest group, like how frequent we meet, what our goals are, what our operating guidelines are. So a lot of those details are within that wiki. So working groups so the interest group is overarching, and it is kind of the overarching network or committee, as you would have it. And under this overarching interest group, there are collaborations, and that's really where the magic is happening. And those are referred to as working groups. And that's really their output focus. So that's where all of the work really takes place. And so working groups are by design, they're clear in their focus and direction, and they have concise goals and really good outputs. So working groups function independently from the interest group. They meet on their own cycle and schedule, and they'll have their own set of chairs as well. for specific interest groups. Although they are still coupled, or even if it's somewhat loose, but they're still coupled with the overarching interest group. So we recently went through an open call earlier this year for working group topics, and we've narrowed it down somewhat with more working groups definitely working or waiting in the wings. With the limited bandwidth, we're certainly focusing on some of the top ones, and the intent to develop more as those others wrap up or near completion. So the working groups are brief in their time span with well-defined outcomes, as I mentioned. Both interest group and working group should have regular representation at the RD plenaries. So that allows us to connect more broadly with other groups and other individuals and other data users. The working group meets more frequently because that's where the real work is happening. So that they tend to meet on a monthly schedule, and sometimes they'll meet more frequently than that, depending on where they are in their process or in their outputs. And then the interest group now meets quarterly. We used to meet more frequently than that, but we just shifted to quarterly. And then time zones are continuing to be a bit of a challenge. So yeah, this just goes over how the working groups work and kind of the guidelines from RDA. So typically they complete their goals or their outputs within the 12 to 18 month period. So it's very limited duration and highly focused. There is a statement of work with a review process, and then there's feedback that's provided by RDA, whether there needs to be more details, and then it's ultimately endorsed. There's 2 to 4 chairs. We have one of ours, we have 3 chairs on it, just the way it works. And then the outputs, what they upload to the shared working space, and then hosted openly where is most appropriate. So we'll get into more of those details with one working group in particular. So sample of the proposed topics included salmon ontology working group, which was of keen interest to the salmon data mobilization group that preceded the RDA interest group. Another one was monitoring methods working group, ontology working group. And a lot of that came because there is initial collaboration and sharing of monitoring resources, and some of the effort to work with that. Migration timing data, as well as long-term monitoring data working group. Those were some of the ideas. So I'll pause on this slide for a bit. So this is our current interest group and working group meeting schedule. And so they all are now in AdCal, which is shout out to Graham as well as Mari, who's worked hard to provide and make these links available. This is very handy because you can sync your own calendar to the meeting which you want to participate in. That allows you to be notified just for those meetings that you have interest or plan to participate in, and you're able to self-manage that invite. So these should be available probably in the recording, or we can share them later, right, Meg?
Yeah, that's no problem.
And yeah, so you'll see as I mentioned, the interest group is meeting quarterly. So our next one's the 3rd of December, salmon ontology working group. The next one's next week. And then the BOSS working group, the next one's the 10th of November. And that one's a little tricky for Pacific time, 8 a.m. on a Monday, but Mountain Time should have it covered, so a little later. But okay, so this is where we're going to try to do Menti a little differently, if we can. And so I'm going to ask if you would participate through Teams chat, and then I'll try and because we're recording and transcribing this meeting, I'll build it after the fact and provide it out to everybody here. So so the first question is, are you new to Research Data Alliance? So have you heard of Research Data Alliance, or are you brand new? And if you could put your response, whether it's yes, kind of, not really, or I'm an RDA veteran, in the chat, that would be great. Oh, maybe someone can use no Menti. Oh, someone used Menti. But yeah, if you could put it in the chat, that would be great. Okay, and then the next one, which I'm interested to do because I really wanted to do the word diagram, or the word, I forget what that's called now, but if you could enter some words that describe the domain in which you work. So whether that's ecology, marine biology, salmon, yeah, that would be a good one. Data scientist, data management, yeah, whatever that might be. And if you can do it in the Menti, great. But if not, if you could do it in the Teams chat, that would allow us to do it after the fact. Not surprising, data management is going high, or unless that's like just answering again and again. But
And I dropped the link in the chat. It seems to be working now, Laura. It must be starting the meeting deal.
oh, okay. Oh, that's excellent. I'm glad it's working.
Fingers crossed. I might have just jinxed myself.
Yeah. But the right folks for sure, all heavy on the data, so that's excellent. And then the third and final one is, what brought you to the RDA Salmon Research and Monitoring Interest Group Tech Talk? So what brought you to our Tech Talk today? Very open-ended, but maybe what brought me is I'm presenting, but no, I could. But that's great. Okay, and then I am going to see, okay. I'm going to slip back to the presentation now. As please feel free to continue contributing to the poll. And I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair, one of my co-chairs, Tom Bird, to do the next number of slides.
Thanks, Laura. And nice to see some familiar faces here. And I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what we're doing in the Salmon Ontology Working Group, which was sort of kicked off during, some of you were there, yep, during the Washington, DC annual meeting of the Fisheries Society. And in that meeting, we brought together a number of salmon data practitioners to learn about their various approaches for addressing this issue that we all recognize of how to overcome data integration issues, and to demonstrate some approaches that some people in NCs are working. So next slide, please. Thank you. And so some of the people who came were from the Pacific Salmon Foundation. Solve Consulting is a group that has been working on salmon data integration with DFO for quite a while, and myself and others from Fisheries and Oceans showed up to show off our various data cleaning approaches. And as well, we had Graham Dyack, our co-chair for this group, introducing his platform called SalHub, which uses knowledge graphs to interrelate various Atlantic salmon data sources. Next slide. And as I heard in this meeting, I'm sure you're all intimately aware with the issue of knowing whether you're talking about the same thing when you say salmon or run timing. And it's great to see, impressive to see all the effort that's gone into this group in terms of reconciling terms and agreeing on, and Mari's one-to-one statistic is seriously impressive considering the diversity of groups involved here. Our interest is in the how do you tell whether you're talking about the same thing if you're not able to exert that level of coordination on the data sets that you're trying to combine. And our colleague Shirley from an NC's working group introduced us to the concept of knowledge modeling, which has as its foundation the idea that the numbers, the data that we collect are being used to represent measurements of things and the characteristics of those things. And so we may both think that we're measuring things called salmon, but the context about and around those measurements really influence whether it's possible for us to compare your salmon numbers to my salmon numbers. A great example that Gottfried from Solve Consulting brought up was the idea of counting salmon during escapement surveys, what we call them anyway. If you've got a count of fish that are going past a fence on their way up to a spawning bed, those counts are fundamentally different from the counts that you get on the spawning beds of spawners that actually made it to a site, because there's, there may be distance between those locations. So you need to understand whether those are comparable for the context that you, or the decision that you're interested in supporting. Next slide, please. And so concept decomposition uses high-level concepts and then breaks those down into smaller and smaller concepts under a particular umbrella in order to be able to group things into small enough topics that you can compare them. So for example, here we've got methods getting broken down into field collection methods, analytic methods, and laboratory methods. And then as you can see, there's hybrid field lab methods there. There's always edge cases, which is sort of one of the challenges that this approach helps to both highlight and deal with. Next slide, please. And so our goal with this approach of knowledge modeling is to be able to describe things in a limited set of terms that are interrelated so that you can basically programmatically describe a concept using a collection of these terms and how they're related. And one example of how this has been done in an ontology is the state of Alaska's salmon and people ontology, which talks about information about salmon in Alaska from a variety of different public and governmental perspectives. And that's one of the key advantages of this approach, is that it allows different ways of thinking about salmon to be brought together in a common machine accessible context. Next slide. And just as an example of how this works, if we take the StreamNet NOSA concept of natural spawners underscore total, which it would, from my perspective, would be an escapement estimate. We can describe natural spawners total as a type of measurement, which is about an entity that we call a population group that has a characteristic of abundance, and to measure that characteristics, we use a count, which is a particular measurement, an integer measurement. Next slide. And so you can string together these different things in order to be able to accurately and concisely describe different other things, higher level things or complicated things like salmon population indicators, which, if you consider a population indicator, you require a number of different things in order to be able to know what population you're talking about and potentially what the purpose of that indicator is. So we might need to know the origin of that population. We might want to talk about the life stage, rearing type, the run, species. All of these things are elements that we would use in order to be able to compare one indicator to another. And it might be that you're interested only in the life stage aspect of that indicator, and therefore it's suitable to compare one indicator against another. But in this way, you have a method by which you can, first of all, label your indicators with the relevant information. Second, make sure that you collect adequate metadata to support that description. And three, provide others a way to compare their information against yours. Next, please. So we are deep in the guts of it now with some of our population data, particularly around the long ongoing salmon escapement time series that we have in DFO, and how those get taken from stream level observations to annual estimates to fisheries decision support indicators. And with that, we are sort of building out the methods and then figuring out how to apply and extend those methods to support other salmon data sources. Next slide. And I believe this is where Lara is going to talk about another of our working groups. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Tom. So yeah, this is another working group that we have up and running. Again, as I mentioned, it meets at 8 a.m. on Pacific time every month on a Monday. And so it's BOSS, or biochronology of otolith and scale samples. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of directions, or very different directions that this working group could take. The initial focus is very much on structure archiving. So just how to store and or archive the various structures, whether they're scales or they're otoliths, and then also how to archive the associated data with this. and how to standardize these procedures and ensure that we're following best practices. So as it turns out, this is very current and relevant, as similar discussions and work is also being done along these lines on the groundfish side. I was recently contacted by CARE, which is the Committee of Age Reading Experts, on procedures for doing these exact same thing or actions or with groundfish otoliths and dorsal spines. So so that group's up and running, and we welcome you or invite you to definitely join us at those meetings. And then one of our other working groups is the best practice paper that's in prep. So this paper is nearing completion. It delves more into the needs and nuances of salmon data mobilization, the lessons that we've learned as a group, and then clearly identifying and recognizing some of the best practices along with that. So. So PSMFC has supported the Salmon Data Mobilization Group and continues to support this formalized RDA interest group, and as well as the various working groups that come from it. The main contacts for the RDA interest group and working group at PSMFC, apart from myself, are Mari Williams and Sam Semino. Those are their emails listed there. They were both involved early on and are heavily involved in the working groups. PSMFC supports the Salmon Research and Monitoring Interest Group through MS Teams. So we're the primary host for most of the meetings. We provide the recordings as well as the notes. And then in addition to this, we host the SharePoint site for this group. And this predates even our charter or our adoption or acceptance endorsement by RDA, and it allows for, the intent of it is to allow for greater collaboration and sharing of documents. So I'll just wanted to bring that up quickly. Oops. So I just have a few more. So this is our SharePoint site here. So as you can see, the invites or the events, the meetings are listed here, and you can sync your calendar to them. We have our shared document folders here that's accessible. If when you go to the link, it'll ask you to request being a member, which Mari, Sam, or I can do. We are up to 89 members, which is great. So this is just one environment that's allowed us to effectively collaborate. And then the Salmon or the RDA interest group has also connected and supports other current efforts for salmon data. So one such effort is the Salmon Data Discovery Tool. This is a partnership. These efforts are a partnership with PSMFC and NOAA. And I'm sure, or please tune into future tech talks with Fish Monitoring Working Group, because I'm sure we will hear more about this work from Monica Diaz as well as Katie Barnes. And then the last one I have is many of our members are also connected to Becky. Becky stands for Basin Scale Events to Coastal Impacts. This is an UNDOS project, and it is kind of a follow-up to IYS. It's spanning the North Pacific, both the west and east side. Becky is currently working on their output of a North Pacific Ocean Knowledge Network. This will be demoed at the Pisces meeting in November 2025, and they've been working extensively on this with QW. If Neil's still here, I know Megan mentioned he may be. So they've been working extensively with them on this. And we're hoping to bring Becky and their North Pacific Ocean Knowledge Network to this group as at a future Tech Talk, and their website is listed there. If you're not able to make the Pisces meeting, that will be an opportunity to see their demo in action. So, so a lot of exciting things happening, and oops, that did have a thank you on it, but I guess it's not there. But thank you for your time today, and please, if I can get to the chat, I'll drop in the link to the RDA group again, but we welcome you to join our interest group, join our working groups, and please provide your expertise.
And Maria and Sam and I were trying to drop as many links as possible, so
Perfect,
hopefully
thank you.
everybody's got access. Awesome. That was a great presentation, Tom and Lara. I didn't realize you guys had so many various facets of what you're doing in all parts of the fisheries. So very, very cool. And like I said, we were trying to drop links in the chat. So, and I'll add those in the follow-up email. So we're going to open the floor. If you guys have questions for Lara or Tom, go ahead, unmute, type it in the chat. Sometimes it takes a little bit for people to warm up. Silence. You guys were so thorough. No one has any questions.
They're saving it all for, they're busy joining, registering and joining our groups and syncing their calendars.
Definitely, definitely. All right. And we'll provide their email addresses in the follow-up email too. So if you guys want to reach out one-to-one, there's less pressure than doing it in front of everybody here. So, all right. Excellent. Thanks so much, Tom. Thanks, Lara, for presenting the group with this info. Oh, there we go. Sam James. She said, thanks for the presentation. It's a bit loud where I am, so I'll stay off mic. Wondering who, WHO, you are looking for to engage in the IG versus the working group. If we're biologists with a specific pit project, should we be involved? And are you looking for project managers, data managers, biologists, single representatives from organizations or individuals can join out of interest? So basically, who are you guys looking for?
Yeah, do you want, I can start and then Tom can add if he like. So yes, if you're a biologist with the Pacific Pit Project, absolutely. You should involve even, and I mean, you can connect and kind of see where we're at or where the interest and how things align. And then you can stay involved as much or as less as you're able. We're hoping on the as much side. And we're looking for any and all. So we're looking for project managers, data managers, and biologists especially, I'd say. Those most familiar with the data and working with the data would be ideal for sure. Managers can be helpful because they have an idea or can guide some of where the output, like what we're looking at for output with the data. And then absolutely single representation. PSMFC is not a member organization, but I'm a member of RDA individually. So yes, absolutely. Tom, did you have more?
Yeah, and more generally on the salmon ontology group, we're interested in people who are willing to geek out about salmon terminology and figure out whether their concepts can be brought together with other concepts. And we'll also be looking for test cases for how to apply the method. So if you're interested in attending a session for interest sakes, by all means, if that tickles your fancy and you want to get into figuring out how to give things machine readable names, then come along for the ride.
Awesome. Salmon geeks, my favorite type of people.
Yeah, and
All fish people, actually. So go ahead, Lara.
Well, I was just going to say, and if you join the interest group, it allows you, when we have new working groups that might more align with your work or your interests, it would allow you to receive those notifications. I mean, we would probably also provide it through PNAMP newsletters and the like as well, but certainly, or you could lead a group, right? You could have a pit tag group, working group. But becoming a member of the interest group certainly allows you to stay connected and kind of see where we're at and what our current working groups are working on.
Excellent. And Tom mentioned, in case you guys can't see chat, they would love a pit tag working group. And I am on board with that as well. All right. Well, thanks again for presenting. I think that was very enlightening. So appreciate you guys' time today. And then I'll just
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just kind of go over wrap-ups before we call it a day. Just a few reminders. After this meeting, I'll send a follow-up email with links and information. If you'd like added to the distribution list, just shoot me an email and I can add you. If you have interesting work that you'd like to present or you have a recommendation for a presentation, let me know. That's great. We love to do that, especially on a lot of emerging stuff or maybe some, summaries from your research and whatnot. Also, we aim to be a resource for you guys. So let us know if you have suggestions. We will reconvene this group on January 15th. And to close out for today, I'd like to give a big thank you to Lara and Tom for presenting on the internationally collaborative work of RDA and SDM. And a thank you to our core team, task leads, and you, our working group. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you, everyone.